Thank you, President. We now move to the awarding of RCSI Honorary Doctorate. RCSI's Honorary Doctorate Award celebrates exceptional individuals who've positively impacted the world through education, research or service. As RCSI staff, we believe our graduates hold similar potential. We want to inspire and challenge you on this year's graduation day to also make a difference. Today, we award the Award of Honorary Doctorate on Professor Tim Spector, Professor of Epidemiology, Director of the TwinsUK Registry at King's College London. I'm delighted now to invite the 2025 Honorary Doctorate recipient, Professor Tim Spector, to take his place on stage. And I invite Professor Tracy Robson, Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic Affairs at RCSI, to read the citation for Professor Spector.
President, it was with great pleasure that I introduce our candidate for the RCSI Honorary Doctorate Award, Professor Tim Spector. Professor Tim Spector is Professor of Genetic Epidemiology at King's College London and founder and director of the TwinsUK Registry, one of the world's most comprehensive collections of data, providing a unique insight into how genetics, environment and lifestyle interact to influence our health. He is also the scientific co-founder of ZOE, a leading science and nutrition company that runs the world's largest in-depth nutrition study, the ZOE PREDICT program. His groundbreaking work focuses on enhancing health through cutting-edge research on the gut microbiome and personalised nutrition. Professor Spector's pioneering research has revolutionised the field of nutrition science, challenged long-standing dietary beliefs, and inspired healthier eating habits and reshaped public discussion on nutrition. Professor Spector has published over 900 research articles in some of the world's most prestigious scientific journals, earning him a place in the top 100 most cited scientists globally. He also has a remarkable talent for translating complex scientific concepts into engaging and accessible narratives for a non-scientific audience. His talent is evidenced in his 5 very popular books, including The Diet Myth, The Real Science Behind What We Eat, which first introduced the importance of the gut microbiome, and his book Spoon-Fed, Why Almost Everything We've Been Told About Food is Wrong, became a Sunday Times bestseller. Additionally, his book Food for Life draws on the latest scientific evidence to offer practical insights and an easy-to-follow guide to healthy eating. To illustrate just how easy and enjoyable a gut-friendly diet can be, Professor Spector reveals in his book, The Diet Myth, that a very pleasant surprise was that the items I thought were naughty, but that I enjoyed immensely, like strong coffee, dark chocolate, nuts, high-fat yogurt, wine and cheese, are actually likely to be healthy for me and my microbes. Professor Spector has received numerous awards and recognitions for his contributions to sciences and health, most notably the DuPont Nutrition and Biosciences Microbiome Science in 2019 for his pioneering work in the microbiome field, and an OBE in 2020 for his significant contributions to the COVID-19 response. He played a pivotal role in the development of the ZOE COVID-19 Symptoms Study app, launched in March 2020, which made a substantial impact during the pandemic, shaping the healthy policy and tracking disease hotspots. The app quickly became the world's largest ongoing study into the virus with over 4 million users. Tim, we are delighted to welcome you here today to celebrate your outstanding contributions to genetic epidemiology, nutrition and public health. We are very proud that you, as a most worthy candidate, have joined our special graduation ceremony to accept the highest academic award of the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, University of Medicine and Health Sciences, the Honorary Doctorate in Science. I now call upon the President of the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, Professor Deborah McNamara, to make the award.
By virtue of my office of President, it gives me great pleasure to award you with the Honorary Doctorate of the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. Congratulations.
It now gives me great pleasure to invite the 2025 RCSI Honorary Doctorate recipient, Professor Tim Spector, to address our graduates, staff and guests.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a fantastic honour to be here today and to be given such a warm welcome, and really rather overwhelmed. The last time I gave such a speech was in Kazakhstan a few years ago. Is anyone here from Kazakhstan? Probably just as well. Because I wasn't feeling very good as I had to give my talk in front of 2,000 medical students, because the night before there'd been a special meal for the foreign guests, which included about 10 rounds of vodka drinking toasts. So I really wasn't feeling very well, and I'd asked for a special remedy that morning to try and dispel the terrible toxins in the alcohol. And they sent up to my room some special local remedy which was supposed to cure all these problems, which was a horse milk kefir, which was fizzy horse milk, which had been lightly fermented for about a week. Needless to say, it didn't transform me immediately, and I felt worse. So anyway, everything from here on in is just plain sailing for me after that event. And I wanted to just tell the newly graduated doctors a little bit about my career, which is very hard for you to imagine now as you're sitting there embarking on the rest of your life. You might have an idea of what you want to do. You might have no clue, but it's just useful to look at how other people's careers have gone that way. So my medical career really got off to a start when I was an operating theatre orderly at the Middlesex Hospital in my gap year before I started medical school. And on the first day, my first operation as I was holding the lights was an emergency caesarean section. And I don't remember much after that because I hit the floor fairly fast. And then later in the week, I was assisting in a hindquarter amputation and had to get the leg off the floor. So I had a really quite abrupt start to my career, which actually put me off surgery. So from that time, I'd said I couldn't fancy all that blood all the time, so I wanted to be a physician. But it took me ages to work out what I wanted to do. I was going to be a neurologist for a while because that seemed really brainy and intellectual. And then they discovered MRI scans, which took away all the fun out of it. And I ended up doing my house jobs and junior work, and I didn't like cardiology. They all seemed a bit too arrogant for me doing cardiology. You said, you've got to be really good to be a cardiologist. That put me off. So I ended up going for a specialty where my boss said, oh, come and do this, Tim. It only takes 6 weeks, and you can learn all the ropes. That's all you need. The rest of it is just a bit of bluff and psychology. I said, that sounds perfect for me. That was rheumatology. And that was great because you could inject people and, make people better and chat to people. And it was and importantly, not too many late nights, which was also important. So that's how I got into my first job in medicine, which was basically having a boss that I liked and I could interact with, as well as doing something that I thought I was good at, chatting to patients and getting involved and doing a little bit of intervention, a few steroid injections. It was kind of cool at the time. So that was good. And I became a consultant rheumatologist at St. Thomas's and was very happy doing that. And I was also doing research at the same time because I'd got into research. I realized this was a good way of seeing less patients and doing less nights. And so that was quite cool. But I was really was always something in me, but it was a bit of a detective. At some point in my career, I did a career guidance test, and it said I should either be a psychologist, a priest, or a detective. So I ended up being none of those, of course, but it was sort of interesting that I had this wish to discover things. So that's when I got into epidemiology. So I took a year out. I did a master's in epidemiology at the School of Hygiene, and then went back and got a fellowship to do more epidemiology and do my thesis. This is after I'd got my membership exam as a physician. And so I always had this, and I did 3 years of research, and then went back and finished my training. And so I had a bit of epidemiology. I did some studies, got some surveys together. I became an expert in the bony spurs of the knee in osteoarthritis, which I thought was really cool because quite young I was this real expert in one minute aspect of the human body, but it allowed me to travel the world and give lectures in exciting places and staying in nice hotels. So that was really good. But then I said, well, there must be more to life than this. I can't do this for the rest of my career. So about this time, I took a few months off and said, what am I going to do now? And I went around the country asking people, if you're going to change career, what would you do now? So a few of them, this is about 1992, I think it was, before most of you were born, I guess. But it was, someone said genetics, that's the future. I said, well, I don't know any genetics. They said, well, all right, what can I do in genetics that involves no skill? Something simple, let's do a twin study. So that was great. I said, okay, let's do a twin study. There were no twin studies in the UK, and I'd read a bit about how twins were really cool. You could look at identical twins, non-identical twins, match them together, and see if what was happening in the identical twins was more similar to the non-identical. Then you say, wow, it's genetic. And that seemed really fantastic. And amazingly, I managed to blag my way into getting a grant, and we started in 1993 the UK's Twin Registry, which ended up having 16,000 twins in it and is still going today. And that was really my playground from then on. And using the twins, I managed to start doing other. I said, if I'm getting these twins in to study into London, I might as well study other things, not just arthritis. So we did arthritis, we did osteoporosis, we did fractures. I said, well, I can do asthma, I can do respiratory diseases. And then I said, well, if we can do everything at the same time, we can measure anything. And so little by little, from being a specialist, I managed to study everything using the same model. And we were looking at everything from back pain, discovering that back pain was more genetic than breast cancer, for example. And even things that people didn't want to study, like nobody was interested in hemorrhoids, but I said, well, I can ask about hemorrhoids. There's only two types of hemorrhoids: people who deny ever having them and those that are telling the truth. So you could have surveys like this that do lots of interesting things. We even did psychology. We did behavioral studies showing that was genetic. We had politics showing that people who voted for Brexit, it was all basically due to their genes. People vote for right-wing parties. Also, it's their parents' fault. And so lots of fascinating things that got me into whole other areas of medicine, and meant there was no real barrier to this. But eventually I got bored of nature v nurture things, so we got into actually studying molecular DNA and genetics, and the sequencing caught up with that. I had to learn that, which was always a bit tough. And then I had to I realized that genetics wasn't going to give us the breakthrough in common diseases that I wanted. It wasn't going to change patients' lives the way I thought it was. I went into something called epigenetics, which is how you switch genes on and off. And I thought this was going to be the big breakthrough, and all the drugs would be coming that way. each time I've changed topic, as any of you who do this will find, you'll get resistance from your colleagues. There's a big resistance in medicine to people switching around. They'd like to think you're a stable influence, you're faithful in that mode. But I've changed many times, and each time you get a rather frosty reception when you turn up and say, I want to move into this area. They say, well, stick to your own one. You know, we're full here. You haven't done all the training. You haven't done 5 years of work and a PhD in this. You know, this is not for beginners. But after a few months sitting in the back of lecture theatres, you get to learn the language and you can speak their language and then you get accepted. And I've done this. So I did this in epigenetics. And then I realized that epigenetics, the technology was a bit slow for me. I was getting impatient. So I switched to something else. And something happened to me in 2011. Two things happened. One was I tested for the first time something in twins that was different between identical twins. I was always interested, why are identical twins often different? Why do they die at different ages? They're genetic clones of each other. They have the same upbringing, the same parents, the same school, the same food, everything. Why are they different for things like cancer, aging, heart disease, depression, obesity? Why does it happen? So I was searching for that little needle in a haystack that would explain so many things about why, say, we're different to our siblings. Why does some family member get a disease, the other one doesn't? And I'd failed and failed to find anything different until one day I did a test, which was the first big twin study of gut microbes. And discovered at that point, it took us a few years to publish it, but I discovered pretty quickly identical twins have completely different gut microbes. They only share about 20% of them, which was amazing for me. That may not sound amazing to you, but it was amazing to me. It was a bit an aha moment. And I was, about a month after this discovery, was in the Italian Alps on a ski trip, doing ski touring, and I ended up at 3,000 meters, it was quite high altitude, felt unwell, and ended up having double vision. And as you guys know, if you've got a sudden episode of double vision that lasts more than fleetingly, there's usually the differential diagnosis is a brain tumor, multiple sclerosis, or some form of stroke. So it wasn't great news. Luckily for me, it was a minor stroke. It was an occlusion in one of the arteries supplying the eye, which I didn't know about, but apparently is much more common than we realized. It got better within 3 or 4 months, but my blood pressure shot up, and I suddenly worried I was going to die, like my father had at 57 of a heart attack. So this changed my mind again and suddenly focused me on not on epidemiology, but my own lifestyle factors. What could I do to live longer, healthier? What wasn't I taught in medical school that I really should learn now? And so that's what I did, and I did this as research for my book, and it turned out that everything I'd been taught up to that point about nutrition, particularly and exercise, was wrong. And so that really changed my life from a selfish point of view. So I combined these two events, one, a research finding with my own self-discovery to show that calories are rubbish, exercise doesn't help you lose weight, fat isn't bad for you, all these things, and that we should be focusing on gut health and nutrition. And that's where I changed again my career and said, I'm going to do the gut microbiome, I'm going to study nutrition, I'm going to write books on it, and this is going to be the next future career. And so that's exactly what I did, and got more and more interested in gut microbes, and in 2017 formed the company ZOE with some entrepreneurs, using this idea that we were going to propagate gut health and nutrition to everybody and improve the health of millions of people. And it's been a slow progress over these 8 years. We had a little break for COVID, if you remember COVID, and that stopped everything in its tracks, but we used the expertise of this company to develop an app that 4.5 million people used, mainly in the UK, to log their symptoms and track what was happening in COVID in real time. And that was an amazing moment for me, that you realized that you could, by using apps and things like this, you could reach millions of people and change their health habits. And this is really what we've gone on to do with the company ZOE that I co-founded, by moving from small numbers of people doing good things to trying to get millions of people to just shift what they're eating. And so this is now the subject of my books, that the idea is we want to help millions of people by shifting the way they think about food. Think about food not as calories, not as fats or protein, but actually how good is this fertilizer for your gut microbes. And so if there's one little message you get from this talk, it is how to if you look after your gut microbes, they'll look after you. And they've got 5 general principles in my books that I want to share with you that are good to memorize as rules for life for your food. Eat 30 plants a week, different plants, not the same plant. And a plant is a nut, a seed, a herb, or a spice. Try and eat the rainbow because they have polyphenol chemicals which are good for your gut microbes. Eat regular fermented foods, even if you don't like the Kazakhstan mare's milk. The other one is to use time-restricted eating. So you don't eat all the time, you have breaks, overnight fasting of 12 to 14 hours, and finally reduce your intake of ultra-processed foods, which are the main reason our worlds are so full of disease and obesity at the moment. If you remember those, you can't go far wrong. So I'll finish there, and just do remember, one other final message is go and enjoy yourselves, go and have a fantastic career ahead of you as doctors. Realize that you can do pretty much anything. You've been given these amazing skills, this amazing confidence, and if you're bored, just change subject. There's so many areas in medicine that you can do that are fantastic and that will keep you happy for the rest of your lives. Thank you very much.